This is Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in San Luis Obispo County. Today we are joined by the fire chief of the city of San Luis Obispo. His name is Garret Olson, and he brought props. And I couldn't be happier. I am that little boy who wanted to be a fireman, and I'm not. You grew up to be a fireman. And so I'd like to talk to you about fires and wildfires. Before we talk about these very important tools,
Absolutely.
I want to ask about the fires the state has been facing this last year.
This has just been an unprecedented year,
right.
With the drought and climate change and all that we're seeing. The condition of our forests are at just a critical level. And you don't have to look far from where we are here to see the impacts of that. We had the Cuesta fire locally,
right.
That got huge overnight.
And I want to ask about the Cuesta fire, the Butte fire, the Rocky fire, the Valley fire.
The Valley fire was epic.
Right. What I've heard about all those fires is they are acting differently than the scientists, the experts would have expected.
They're acting differently than grizzled old firefighters who've been doing this for a long time would expect them to.
Why?
So we develop this slide carousel in our mind when we get to a fire and we take a look at the topography and the weather and the fire. We kind of have an idea of how that fire is going to behave over the next 10 or 12 hours. And the fires this year are defying conventional wisdom, and it's almost to our disadvantage that we look at it and we think we know what it's going to do. This year it's not. It's just not matching that.
Is it because of our drought? Is it because
the drought is probably one of the biggest determining factors of that. We've done a great job for the last 100 years of putting out forest fires, and what that's done is it's allowed more fuel, more vegetation to grow than can be healthily sustained in the forest. And so now when fires come through, not only are the trees weakened because of drought, then they become diseased because they're weakened, and there are more trees than naturally would be in the forest 100, 200 years ago, and they are just absolutely taking off and creating their own weather patterns.
And I was going to ask you about that, this notion, this scenario of fires and their own microclimates.
Yeah.
Explain that.
It's just from what happens in the local atmosphere with pressure currents and bringing in winds, and it just becomes this kind of vicious cycle of the weather changing moderately, which feeds the fire that changes the weather more, which feeds the fire, which changes the weather more, and it just keeps evolving until you've got your own microclimate around the fire. And the Valley fire was probably one of the most tragic fires. They're all tragic, but the Valley fire, how quickly it went from something small to something just ginormous in a matter of hours was incredible.
Yeah, the number of homes lost, 500-600.
Yeah.
Lives, 5, I believe.
5 to 7.
Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I mean, every life lost is tragic.
Absolutely.
I want to talk, though, about the work that you do, because obviously it is critically important. And we brought some firefighting equipment, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
This is equipment.
This is equipment.
Talk to us about what this is and why I'm running out of a building and you're running in a building wearing this.
So this is different than what we wear on a wildland fire. This is our structural firefighting equipment. So if this building were on fire or a home was on fire, we have a complete, fully encapsulated ensemble called turnouts and self-contained breathing apparatus, the bottle that we wear on our back that gives us about 30 minutes of air. And this is just an incredible advancement in technology. It's almost a little scary how deep we can go into a really, really, really hot environment and still be relatively safe on the inside.
Can you be in the middle of a flame wearing this?
Well, you could for a brief period of time, but you can be. It's rare that a firefighter would be in the middle of a flame.
One need not be in the middle of a flame.
Right, and that's where this device comes in handy.
And we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, so it's rare that you find yourselves literally standing in flame impingement. Usually you find yourself crawling through a building, locating the seat of the fire, and trying to put it out.
And that's where this is pivotal.
That's where this comes in.
Because
I can be in a building that I'm surrounded by 900, 1,000 degree temperatures. and I'm inside, and it's really warm and uncomfortable and sweaty, but I'm alive.
Why? What is this doing?
So it has 3 layers of protection. It helps from the thermal radiant heat. There's insulation, and then there's also a layer in here that protects me from steam. So when I apply water to a fire, it creates steam. So water expands 1,700 times. So a pint of water will create 1,700 pints of steam. So when we go and fight the fire, if we didn't have something like this, we would create lobsters and crabs out of firefighters because you would just steam them. And so this has a special layer to protect against
when that steam is created, y'all can't see anything,
no,
let alone the smoke
right.
that is billowing from the burning structure. That's where this comes in.
That's where that comes in.
And
that's
I'm
a thermal imaging camera.
So glad you brought this.
Yeah, I think your staff was thrilled that I brought it as well.
What's remarkable about this device, sir, is that it's a little different than when you first held a device like this in the olden days.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So I still like to think of myself as a fairly young guy, but I can remember the first thermal imaging camera that I used was like a 9-inch TV on a broom handle. And the technology continues to evolve as all things do. But that is just an incredible device. It allows us to go into a completely blackened environment and not only be able to see, but to be able to appreciate the differences in heat signature. So if the lights were out and you couldn't see anything in this room and somebody were to lay on the floor over there, you could scan and very easily see that person there. The other thing that it does for us is when we come to investigate a smell of smoke or a smell of something burning, we could come into an environment like this and we could go into a Target or a Costco and they may have hundreds of heating units up on the roof or thousands of lights in there. We can scan the ceiling and look for that one light that's hotter signature than the other ones and isolate a burned out light ballast like that. It used to take hours to be able to locate those things.
Meaning the benefit of being able to do that like that, how does that help the firefighting?
So oftentimes it's more about helping the business. Oftentimes businesses will have this strong smell of something burning and it might just be a light ballast. And so they'll evacuate their customers and we'll come in and try and find out what it is. Or there'll be smoke coming into the building and it might be from an HVAC unit on the roof that's overheated. Maybe it's thrown a bearing or something. We go up and we scan them all and go, oh, there's the one that's hot. We secure it. We let them open up the store that much quicker.
Tell me how you were able to obtain this, because this is a fairly modern device.
Yes.
It's the best technology. How'd you get it?
So both of these actually have a common theme, and that is through a federal grant, through FEMA, the Assistance for Firefighters grant. The city applied for grants. We apply for grants to stretch our local dollars as best we can. And these are 2 success stories. We were able to purchase 5 thermal imaging cameras.
And this cost how much? Is it public?
These are, it's totally public. I believe these are right around $11,000. They were when we purchased them.
Right.
They may be more now or less now and have better, it's just like a computer. The technology is just happening at rapid rate.
But what's stunning about this is the ease with which it can be used. I mean, I'm just holding this up and I can see Carmen right in front of me.
Yeah.
You don't need to be a photographer to figure out how to use this.
And it's so sensitive, as I showed you earlier. I can put my hand on this desk, lift my hand up, and you'll see the heat signature from my hand. And you'll see it slowly go away as the table returns to the same temperature as the rest of the table. It's just incredible.
Any stories you can tell us where this was life-saving?
Well, we had a young man who was in a condominium complex over by Cal Poly who was not where you would normally expect to find somebody. He was behind a couch during a fire and he was unconscious. We came in and scanned it. There he is, and you pull him out. It makes a difference between life and death.
He would have
died. He was I would say less than minutes from death. And you scan, you see him, there he is, let's get him out of here. And so the cost of all of those, although we're thrilled that it was a federal grant, even if we purchased it locally, the cost of that device paid for itself with that young man who continues to go to school and continues to be able to spend Christmas and holidays with his parents.
It is remarkable.
It's
Thank you for what you're doing for the residents of San Luis Obispo, and thanks for bringing these, I call them props and toys. I don't mean to be flippant about it. These are very important life-saving devices.
They're important toys.
No doubt about it. His name is Garret Olson. He is the fire chief in San Luis Obispo. My name is Brad Pomerance, and this is Charter Local Edition.